It's time for Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen. What's up, everyone? Welcome into Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen. Bryan Nolen ain't here right now. My name's Trey, Lyle, filling in for him this week. I typically produce. I also co-host Happy Hour a little later on. We'll talk to Wyatt Watson. You can see him in the screen right now. But first, we always have to go into the Inferno. You will see Bryan there as he will talk with ARCA Menards series driver Brayton Laster, the pizza man. That conversation now as Brayton Laster heads into the Inferno. Now it's time for...
We are talking to the pizza man, the one and only pizza man, Brayton Laster, getting set for another go-around this weekend.
To go into the Inferno with Bryan.
Right now, folks, at this time, going to bring the program. He's an ARCA Menards series driver. You can follow him on the Twitter at the One Pizza Man. Brayton Laster joins the program. Brayton, what is going on, my friend? How you doing, man?
I'm fantastic. Got some lovely Indiana rain coming at us, so
Nice.
It seems to follow NASCAR people wherever we go.
You're not kidding. It definitely has felt like that. We'll get to that in just a little bit since you experienced that at Phoenix this past weekend. But first off, for those that don't know who you are, what is your story and where'd you come from, my friend?
So I have a bit of an unusual route while a lot of kids kind of start out young, like micros or go-karts or something like that, and then work their way up to legends, bandoleros, and then there's like late models. I started out in go-karts of pretty similarly racing ovals here around Indianapolis, primarily the Indianapolis Speedrome, which is a flat fifth mile. You thought Martinsville was flat? Nah, this track I think has negative thinking. And so I kind of grew up there, like little 3.5, 4.5 horsepower go-karts. And then I moved up into like Hornet / front wheel drive cars, which basically around here is like an economy version of like your stock class. Basically, it's like take a street car, like your 2002 Honda Civic, knock the windows out, put a steel plate on the door, and go play Demo Derby. And it was fun because, with how budget it is, you had 40, 50 cars out here on a fifth mile track digging it out.
Wow.
It's insane. And then I did some street stock Thundercar stuff when I was 12. We had a 1977 Ford Thunderbird, so I ran that for a couple of years. And then this is where it gets real interesting. The Speedrome in Indianapolis, we're known for more than just the Indy 500. We're known for figure eight racing, and you'll have an intersection where you go through it. And here that we don't really race a whole lot of like late model stuff at the Speedrome. It's all like, at least not like asphalt late model. It's all like figure eight late model stuff. And I'm talking full blown $50,000-$60,000 late models, and you're driving at each other, basically trying to avoid them. It's pretty awesome. I recommend anyone that doesn't really know what I'm talking about, like go on YouTube and look up Indianapolis Speedrome figure eight, and like you'll be blown away. I have a couple GoPro clips on there, and so I did that for a couple of years. And then in 2018, we made the move to dirt. I ran some dirt late models around here, and we traveled Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, St. Louis. We traveled all over. It's running dirt. And then in 2022, we got an opportunity to go down to Daytona and test, and never really looked back. We've been running part-time with the ARCA platform ever since. Made a truck start in 2022 as well, and hopefully we're able to get back there this season.
Now, when I go to your profile, you have your Twitter handle at the One Pizza Man. Where does that come from? Because when I think of you, and I'm not trying to be like rude or anything, because this is a good thing, I think of pizza. So where does your username come from?
Yeah, I just really, really like pizza, and I've always really, really liked pizza, and it's just kind of been my thing is, hey, he's a pizza kid, and like in middle school, I had like a pizza jacket, and I had a pizza backpack, I had pizza shoes, and it was kind of like that was my personality. I was a weird middle school kid, had nothing better to do, and then it kind of transferred over the racing slowly but surely. I got the helmet, and then people started calling me the pizza man and the pizza kid at the track, and it's funny enough because I'm actually wearing some of my merch. You can see there.
Nice.
I ran into my 8th grade social studies teacher last night at Walmart, and He says, I knew it was you because I saw the Pizza Man sweatshirt.
Love
I'm
it.
like, that's awesome. I knew it's been 6-7 years since I've seen him. And he's like, oh, we still talk about we still talk about the little nerdy pizza kid that, like yay tall in 8th grade out here racing NASCAR. And they follow along pretty closely, which is kind of cool. But it's been my thing as long as I can remember for the most part.
Brayton Laster joins the program. Alrighty, this is going to determine how well the interview goes, okay? I got one important question for you. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
So that's going to be a hard no. And I'm glad you brought that
No,
up.
that was
I'm
not the
sorry.
right answer. That was not the right answer. No, buddy.
So I even had an appearance through Twitter /X on the Scene Vault podcast the other night too.
Okay.
Yeah, they brought me up because they were talking about pineapple on pizza, and they're like, Brayton Laster, that's when Pizza Man says hard no. So I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but let me tell you, it's going.
I just did. I was like, is something going above? Like, do you have like a 2-story house or something? But I didn't realize
that's
that was thunder.
It's going crazy outside right now. So oh man.
Oh, I'm disappointed because that's like I grew up with pineapple on my pizza, and that's still my favorite pizza. So disappointed that the Pizza Man does not approve of that. But we will continue on though. I want to talk about on the racing stuff. You went to Daytona this year, obviously did not qualify. Just what happened and what were the struggles in practice / qualifying for you?
Yeah, we were the new team. We were TC Motorsports / Man Motorsports, and it was kind of a joint effort. Everyone kind of working together to benefit mutually. And we weren't able to go down to testing in January. It was like I said, it was a very, very last second deal. Like this deal got put together probably late December, early January. So very last second. And we went down there. I felt like we had a pretty good racing car, and that's one thing about ARCA is you don't really have a whole lot of difference between a qualifying trim and race trim. I mean, you do what you can, but you're very limited on what you can and can't adjust after qualifying. And so we thought we had a really, really good race piece, and we went out there in practice, and we never really got in a big draft. But when we were in a draft, we're like, hey, this thing sucks up and pushes pretty good. Like we're in a pretty good spot here. And then ARCA would do group qualifying, and it's all random. The way you line up in your group and who your group is all random. And we unfortunately were kind of towards the tail end of our group, and we got wrong, and there was some kind of checkup, and driver tried to go too wide. And obviously, you have 6-7 guys. If you can all stay single file and go, they're going to be top of the board because mostly everyone breaks apart some way or another. And someone tried to be those slingshot and move on the outside. I realized he made a mistake and then came down kind of across my nose. I had to barely burp the throttle to not wreck us both because I'm not a big fan of wrecking race cars. And I'm like, I could have stayed in it. And then we're both for sure DNFing, or I could have, gassed her up or just burped it and gassed it back up. And that little burp, that little slip of off throttle time was just enough for us to barely lose the draft. And with it only being 4 or 5 minutes, you don't really get a chance to reset. Single car speed, even we were great. And just that we lost that draft, and everyone else had partners to work with the whole time. And that's kind of what hosed us. I mean, I was pretty bummed out at first, I'm not gonna lie. And I saw that guys like SVG didn't even qualify in. I'm like, hey, me and SVG twin. And suddenly a car withdrew and he was able to get in. I don't know how that one happened. And people were like, hey, just go get someone to withdraw. I'm like, I don't have that big of a checkbook. Because when it was all said and done, provisional wise, I was the first car out. So that one really, really hurt because I think we ended up we beat 12 or 13 cars on time, and we had to beat 16. And 3 in front of us for SVG, and then 2 cars that drafted together actually, and they still didn't make it. And we were only like 100th behind them. So that shows us kind of how good we were, I feel like. Just having, being a tick off cars that were actually working together and drafting. So that it definitely sucked. And then, the race was a lot of stuff was torn up. So thankfully we were able to make it out of that one with a clean car. That's my biggest thing is I want to leave the track with a clean car. It doesn't matter if we don't make the race or we run, every single lap. I just hate tearing up equipment because a lot of these like small teams that I drive for, they just work too hard and they work insane hours getting these cars ready. And it's tough on them, especially like when I do stuff for the Rise Motorsports. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. Like I'm getting ready to do Kansas for them. They only have one car and a handful of spare parts, and they're trying to put together a good majority of the season if they can. So, one bad crash there, and I mean that's their season done.
A couple more things here, Brayton, before we let you go. You're mentioning like the inventory for the cars and everything, but it feels like the inventory for the car count in ARCA just in general has gone up. I mean, you guys had people go home in Phoenix, so why has the car count gone up in the ARCA Menards series? That was a big thunder.
Yeah, I saw lightning through the window. We don't even have
Woo!
So yeah, it's a trend year. I'm kind of proud to be part of it. I call it the Brayton Laster effect. Everyone wants to just race against Brayton Laster personally, I think. But no, I'm not really sure. A lot of people say it's like an excess of Gen 6 cars, but I don't think that's it because most of the Gen 6 cars went to Xfinity teams, and there wasn't a whole lot of trickle down really to that from Cup or Xfinity to ARCA. And I think a lot of it's just more money as a whole is being brought into the sport. The viewership's up. Like Phoenix this past weekend got 336,000 viewers on Fox Sports. I mean, last year that would have been equivalent to almost Talladega, I think, just shy of Talladega numbers. Talladega's our second biggest race. But we have over a quarter of it was up, I think, 83% too. But we have over a quarter of a million people watching you. It's easy to go out there and try to get sponsorship money. Working as a driver that works on raising his own funds 100% of the time, I don't really have an agency or a marketing guy that I work with a whole lot. I sit here and do all the quote cut, throw emailing and calls myself, try to make it happen. I see the effort that goes into it for a lot of these guys. It's like I can relate to them. And there's just a lot more, I guess, willingness to hop on board. And you can go here and say, yeah, this series gets 200, 300, 400,000 live viewers on average for a smaller race. And that's something that people just love being a part of. I don't think it's necessarily a trickle-down effect from the Gen 6 cars because only a handful of like the top manufacturer teams got those. I just think more money as a whole is being brought into the sport, and I think it's easier to get into ARCA with a small family team than it is to go truck racing and Xfinity racing for a lot of these guys.
Last but not least for you, my friend, you mentioned Kansas that you're going to be running for them. What does the future hold for you, not just this year, but in the years to come?
Yeah, so as far as this season goes, we have a handful of planned races. We're shooting for Kansas Speedway on May 4th. I would love to run. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and with it being on May 4th, I would love to do a Star Wars scheme. I don't know how we're going to do that one, but that would be so cool. Then we're running the 2 dirt races. Like I said, I have that dirt late model background, and I got my first career top 10s there last year with the Rise Motorsports. And a lot of people don't think you're running ARCA, they're running NASCAR. They're loaded. These teams have plenty of parts. Like in ARCA, there's so many like small family teams like Rise Motorsports. Like I said, they literally have one car, a motor and a half, and a handful of parts. And like they don't even have any full-time crew guys. Tim and Rita, who own the team in the car, they both work third shift jobs, and then when they get off, they go sleep, work on the race car, go to work. They both work day job, or I guess night jobs, and I have to be able to go and do it. Rita's full-time East, and so she's got to take time off for work. And I mean, they bust their butts to get the car tuned from the track and get it ready. And they don't have that $1 million funding that people expect in NASCAR that you have. And so we're running with those. We're trying to get something put together for a road course or 2 in ARCA, as well as IRP and Salem, I believe in June, July, or August. It's around the summer months. I want to say right around that split. And we're trying to get back in the truck series too, ideally, is the plan. I ran the Knoxville truck race in 2022, got 27th there with Rayon Brothers, and I had a real good debut. And we're talking a couple different teams here and there, trying to get something put together possibly and see if we can make a return.
At the One Pizza Man on the X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Brayton, thank you so much for joining us. I will see you in person in Kansas in May, and hopefully we can see you in the Truck Series soon, brother.
Yeah, no, feel free to walk up. We'll share a slice or something.
Trust me, you don't have to say that twice. We definitely will, my friend. Brayton Lasser joining Bringing the Heat podcast.
Thanks so much to Brayton for that interview. Great conversation Brian had with him. So obviously big race for him coming up at Talladega this upcoming weekend. But let's get in with the latest headlines with What's Still Hot.
What's Still Hot? It's time to upgrade you on the latest news in NASCAR.
What's still hot? We're joined by Wyatt Watson at Wyatt Game Time on Twitter. Buddy, you were at Texas this past weekend, quote unquote, your home race. And Chase Elliott gets it done with the win, but that's not what I'm going to talk about. We're going to talk about that in a matter of moments. I'm going to talk about the Xfinity Series race there for you as a thrilling finish, a .002 margin of victory for Sam Mayer over Ryan Sieg. So my first question for you, Wyatt, is do you think Ryan Sieg should have done more on that last lap, maybe been more aggressive to get his first career win, which would have set a record for most career starts for a first win in the Xfinity Series?
I feel like he could have done something laps before the last lap. He could have probably drove into Sam Mayer's line, get his air a little bit disturbed, and that would have slowed down Mayer's progress. But with Sam Mayer coming with that much of a head of steam, the only thing he could have done more is obviously would have been dooring him a little harder, getting him into the wall, like a Darlington-esque type finish, if you will, Darlington 03. That would have been insane. But he did the most clean. Like, he was really clean racing. I respect the racing that Ryan Sieg did. It just didn't give him the win. 2 1,000ths of a second. By the way, Texas is back. Breaking news on that front. But that was such an incredible finish. You'd hate to see it for Ryan Sieg fans. He's been doing this for over a decade, and that racing was just incredible. He had a short run car though, and you saw it throughout the race. He stuck in the top 10 because of that. But the laps were just too much for him. Sam Mayer was hot at the end of that race, and what a finish, man! Like, as a guy that's been going to Texas Motor Speedway most of my life, my first race there was 2008. Most incredible finish I've ever seen at the track, and it's aging well, and Texas is back.
Well, we'll see about that. We talked a lot about Texas in the Happy Hour podcast, so go check out more of my in-depth thoughts there. But I will just say this. He maybe could have done more of like a Ricky Craven there as well. So I'll agree with you on that. All right. Interesting headline here that came out today. NASCAR COO Steve O'Donnell basically quoted as saying he was called it the never-ending question about the charter agreement. He was at the CAA World Congress of Sports in LA, where he said the deal was very, very close. But some reporting was being done by Sports Business Journal's Adam Stern. He reported in February that the offer is to extend the system of the charters from 2025 through 2031. The original charter agreement was negotiated in 2015 and was of the first year of the NASCAR's current 10-year media rights agreement. Obviously, NASCAR is notably different with no equity in the league itself and are independent contractors. So the negotiations are going on. Just to counter this, 3 people familiar with teams thinking all said they disagreed with O'Donnell's assessment of the deal. I'm reading the article verbatim right now. If you want to go visit the Sports Business Journal's website, you can check that out. But being very close, one of the people noted that there's meetings coming up between NASCAR and the Race Team Alliance in the next couple of weeks, but there's still significant issues that are not yet resolved. All right, Wyatt. Obviously, this is probably the biggest underrated discussion point throughout the season. I feel like Denny Hamlin's going to get asked about it every other week during his media bullpen. Same for Brad Keselowski. But ultimately, where I think this gets done, I think that's not a question. Ultimately, how much of the TV revenue do you think NASCAR needs to relinquish in order to give the teams what they want?
Just refresh me. It's 30% right now the teams get from that deal today.
I know. Let me read. I believe it's in that ballpark. Yes.
Yeah, it's like that ballpark. I think it's less than that, like 20, between 25, 30%. I mean, obviously the teams want more. I think what their numbers were 50. Don't quote me on that. But NASCAR needs to come up to the team's level if they want to get the deal done. Adam Stern, great journalist and reporter for Sportsman's Journal. I tend to agree with a lot of what comes out from what they say and what they report. And they're very good. So with that being said, I mean, there's been no positive trends coming from the other side of the aisle and from the owners' perspectives that are confirmed. I am very skeptical. It will happen for sure. Now, halfway through the season and it hasn't been done yet, then I might get slightly worried. But we're a quarter through the season, so we're almost there. But
so just I found the numbers. Sorry to interrupt you, Wyatt. So 65%. This is from the Charlotte Observer. 65% of the money goes to the tracks, 25% goes to the team, and 10 goes to NASCAR. But if you really want to do the math, half the tracks are owned by NASCAR. So then you add in that revenue, it kind of, matriculates itself. So do the math. I'm not good at math. Go see the happy hour in video of me trying to do math. But essentially, they're getting less than a third. If you want to say a third goes to the track, a third goes to the teams, and a third goes to NASCAR, or if the majority is held by the tracks, or getting nearly like 2/3 of the revenue.
Well, I feel like the team, like NASCAR wouldn't be where it's at without the teams, without these drivers putting on a show. The teams have been begging, have been crying how much they're just trying to make it break even. Like if we're going to grow the sport, the teams need to thrive. As long as, of course, NASCAR needs their due. Of course, SMI needs their due, but track promoters need a little bit of the pot too. But these guys put on a show. These teams put on a show, and without those teams, there's no NASCAR. So there needs to NASCAR needs to listen to these teams. I feel it's in their part to do something, and obviously the teams aren't happy still to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to our soundbite of the week where we talk a little bit about the Cup Series winner at Texas.
Well, Tony, what angered you at the end of the race? What did you take issue with?
What the hell do you think I was mad about? Dumb little runs us clear down to the infield. He wants to about everybody else, and he's the one that drives like a little I'm going to bust his ass.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
And short track racing.
It's time for the soundbites of the week.
Frontships.com. Chase, part of what got you back into the game after starting kind of in the mid-pack was running long and having that caution in the first stage. How important was it, in just terms of getting that track position to make the rest of the race easier, run up front? And was that kind of you and Alan's, was that kind of the plan from the start, or was it kind of a matter of we're in the lead, we're just going to run as long as we can?
Well, we were just buried. I had a bad qualifying lap yesterday, and we were just we were just buried in traffic, and the track hadn't really come in good at that point in time. So traffic was even worse then at that point in the race than I think it was as the race went on. So once people started peeling off the pit, really, we actually ran our fastest laps of the race after everybody pit there, like 50 some odd laps into the run. Right before the caution came out, we were running our best laps that we had all day. So clean air was just that big of a deal. And it got us into a position where we were making up a little ground because of the pace, and we were just trying to be different than everybody else, and unfortunately it fell our way.
And then Saturday, you did want to ask kind of about the current configuration. You did say that the previous one was one of your favorites. Does your thoughts on what we have here at Texas now change now that you have this win?
Not really, but I do think that the tire today I thought was an improvement for. It was fun because like we actually had a little fall off, like tire sets meant a little something. So I think that was why the race was as good as it was because we did have a little bit of fall off, and it promoted you to want to come down pit road and put on tires a little more than we have been. I'm not saying it was great, but I'm saying it was better than it's been, at least from my vantage point. I could be totally off base. When you watch something from the outside, it can look different, but from where I was sitting, it seemed like tires were a little more of a factor, and I think that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Chase Elliott, Wyatt Watson with FrontStretch.com. First off, congratulations to your first Cup Series Cowboy hat. And number two, what does it mean to you now being the third teammate at Hendrick Motorsports to win and Rick Hendrick's 40th anniversary?
Yeah, just nice to contribute. Really more than anything, just nice to feel like you're helping out. Not just winning, not just putting banners on the wall, but pushing the team and the company to be better. I mean that's the wins are nice, and for sure you have to enjoy them because man, they're hard to get. And has certainly made me enjoy these moments more and try to just slow down and embrace it because. It's what you work for every week. And but from a team perspective and the 40th and for Rick and just appreciative of him for sticking with me and continuing to believe in me and to make sure that I know that. And he does a great job of that. And I'm grateful for it. But glad I can contribute and we can contribute as a team to the company as a whole, and that's a lot more fun, when you're doing that.
That was Chase Elliott post race as he made some comments there. Wyatt asked him a question about winning this year, and that is ultimately my question for you, Wyatt. Obviously, ends the long race winless streak at 42 races. Chase Elliott, do you feel like this was a one-hit wonder for him, or do you think this will ultimately project him back into, running with or having this similar speed of, really two of the best right now, which are on his own team, Kyle Larson and William Byron?
I think this does project him back with those two. He's also, he's been projected back the last couple of weeks. He's been running top five. He's gotten those top fives. He's been running consistently. He's top five in the points right now. He's been showing that speed that he had pre his injury, his snowboarding or skiing injury, whichever it was. But Chase Elliott's been fast. He had really good strategy to get up there in the front. He stayed up front, had a very fast car on the mile and a half. It's gonna be between those two Hendrick teammates and Joe Gibbs Racing on standard tracks. In my eyes, obviously Talladega, he could win that too. But he's put himself into the conversation of a winner and being a threat to win week by week. Now, Byron still has a very fast car. Larson has probably the most talent of everybody in the field. But like I said, and Joe Gibbs is still going to have a fast car week by week. So, Elliott rather is going to be one of those guys to look out for each week and see if he can contend for the win. But he can certainly contend for the championship. Just look at what Ryan Blaney did last year and just get hot at the right time. Chase Elliott can do the same thing. So who knows? And we'll see.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we might need to see a little bit more, but ultimately you have a really good run at Martinsville, arguably could have won that race, and then you have a really good run at Texas, including the win. Being the third best Hendrick driver might mean you're like the fifth best in the series right now with the way those cars are. So, Wyatt, one more segment. We're rounding turn 4, and we are seeing that checkered flag.
It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag.
The checkered flag is out, and it's time for the final thoughts.
Time for some final thoughts. Anything you want to talk about, rant, rave, or review. Mr. Wyatt Watson, the floor is yours.
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier with Ryan Sieg. Texas is back. I've criticized this track since the repave. I've loathed seeing races at this track. I even had my doubts coming into this weekend just because I'd say last year was a decent showing, but I thought it was just because of how hot it was. It was miserable. I hated it. I thought I was going to have to go in the infield care center because of how hot it was just sitting there waiting for interviews. So I loathed going to this track in this reconfigured stage. And boy, did they put on a good 3 races this week. I'd say that Truck Series race, under the lights, I love under the light races. I haven't seen a Texas under the lights race in a while. It looked great. Kyle Busch's truck looked pretty decent, looked decent as a paint scheme. He was dominating, but it wasn't a runaway. Corey Heim made it an interesting show on Friday. So I was pleased with that race and how it went. The Xfinity race, what more can you ask for? I mean, Allgaier led most of that race, but Herbst had a chance. The caution comes out. Ryan C comes out of left field and is pulling away from the field, but then Sam Mayer runs him down. What a photo finish that was. You can't ask for any more than that from the Xfinity Series. What a show. And then the Cup Series to round it out. We had 16 cautions on a 400-mile race. Was it due to tires? No, it was due to how challenging Texas Motor Speedway is to drive and the slickness of the track. And there was passing. I like the fact that people could get runs, have a good restart, and get past people. And we had an exciting, thrilling race to cap it all off with Hooters winning in over 30 years. Chase Elliott breaking a 42 race winless streak. Brad Keselowski right behind him with a now 107 race winless streak. And you had Carson Hocevar finish in the top 10. Austin Dillon, who's had a terrible season, get his top 10. There was plenty of comers and goers. You didn't know who was going to be there at the end of the race. Denny Hamlin battling on the high side, spinning out. Michael McDowell, the same thing for the lead. So plenty of players to go around. Texas is back. I can firmly say that. And people should be looking to see more races at this track if it continues on this trajectory. And I'm very pleased as a native Texan that this track has finally produced some very high quality racing, in my opinion.
The Texas A&M student says Texas is back. That's pretty interesting. All right. I might disagree with that take about Texas. I talked a little bit more about it at during happy hour, but my final thought is actually about happy hour. It's the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. So I just wanted to reiterate. I said it more than, but I want to thank all the guests and everyone and it brought me to front stretch. So I just want to thank obviously Tom. I try to thank Dalton as best I could there. But thinking of Dalton while I was doing that podcast yesterday. So I wanted to get this time to think about my buddy. Hopefully he's listening to this wherever he is, and miss him. Hope he's coming back soon. And just know I'm thinking about you, bud. And that's what I will do with my final thought. Good news is Bryan will be back here next week after Talladega. We got a great podcast lined up for you. As always, you want a betting preview for Talladega? Tino Wyatt was actually on this podcast last week, Through the Gears with Tino. So Tino will have that. Wyatt, before I get you out of here, anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
So I'll be at Talladega next week as well. So I'll be back to back there. Excited for that. Remember last year was where the trucks aren't going to be there, but Crafton and Nick Sanchez had that brawl exclusively on front stretch. Be sure to look out for anything crazy, anything wild that goes on at Talladega. I will sure to be on the scene for that. Like I said, like you said too, I'm thankful and happy to be a part of front stretch and to be part of the team, of course. Thank you to Tom. Thank you to Steven and Michael and everybody that contributes. And
thank those last two.
Right. No, thanks to everybody that supports me here. Thanks to everybody that listens to this and it has this as their main go-to for NASCAR content. And we appreciate everyone involved with front stretch and everything. And I'm excited for next week. It's Talladega, baby. We're gonna have a good time.
At Wyatt Game Time, follow him there at Front Stretch. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch this podcast, or subscribe wherever you get the podcast. Like I said, Bryan will be here next week. If you want to talk about how you miss him at the Bryan Nolen, you can tweet him this week. I'm not going to be mean to him. He's currently in mourning after his Golden State Warriors did get blown out in the play-in. You can follow me at Trey Lyle VT. Make sure you hit me up there if you have any thoughts about this podcast, about Happy Hour. I'd love to hear your comments there. Also at Front Stretch, great content we'll have at the track this weekend. Wyatt will be there as mentioned. As always, remember, listen to Through the Gears. That's the next podcast on the podcast feed. And your perfect recap of the race at Talladega will be Stock Car Scoop with Mr. Adam Cheek. But for Wyatt, my name is Trey Lyle. Thank you so much for bringing the heat.
Hey everyone, Dalton Hopkins here with FrontStretch.com. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and check out one of the 2 videos next to me to see more of our racing content.